You have to be really on your toes. You don't want to stay sequestered, from the whole world, which is what I had to do for 2 years. But the attacks that maybe you had aren't going to be there anymore. There will be pestering attacks because that's just the nature of the game. How else would you learn? It's the nature of school. How else would you learn unless you had adversity in front of you? That just, walking every day, that's all I did in the other timeline too, walking every day and in what's in front of you. Don't worry about what's happening out there. Yes, it affects you, but you're smart enough to figure out, how can I walk in these two worlds for a while until this complete bifurcation happens, because it will happen.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quantum Realms 2021. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to talk to our next guest, Michelle Walling. I really had trouble sleeping last night, and I'm serious, thinking about catching up with you. Oh my gosh, do I miss you? I am so happy that you're here talking with me today. Welcome.
Thank you. I have been kind of behind the scenes holding some energy for a lot of the shifts that we're going through. And I'm really thrilled to be here on my coming back out show because I haven't actually had any interviews with anybody else. So I'm honored to have my really good friend Candace here interviewing me, so I can share some information that's all about me, sharing with you what's happened to me, so that hopefully other people can gain some confirmation or some wisdom behind what's been going on, because it's been absolutely insane.
Boy, isn't that the truth? But let me just start by saying so many people miss you. So many people contact me and even ask, how's Michelle? Where's Michelle? Is Michelle okay? People miss you. I'm honored. I feel a little bit like I've got a scoop here going on to be able to talk to you, interview you. And one more thing, girl, you're absolutely glowing. I mean,
thank you.
You look healthy and amazing. And I'm just so happy. Hugs.
I miss you. I'll have to come up with my new boyfriend. I say new. I've been with him for a year and 2 months now. So I'd love to bring him up. Come to the farm.
Oh my gosh. Well, we would love to have you visit. So you kind of stepped back from this work and you started to kind of work on yourself and your health. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I've been through a pretty rough time, just like a lot of our listeners out there. But really, what happened to me is, for the past 2 years, I've been pretty low key, and I didn't realize what was happening. I kind of felt like I was in a bardo in between worlds, and I had been dealing with an illness, and it's still partially there, kind of a throat and esophagus issue. And as Dolores taught us in all of her work, and what you've uncovered in being able to help people heal themselves, is, of course, it's usually self-inflicted. The problem with being self-inflicted is where you are at that's causing you to do these things unconsciously to yourself. What timeline are you on? And so to go back, I couldn't, in the last couple of years, make anything work for me. And I was fighting to make something work. And I remember most of my life, I've been able to manifest things. And I even manifested at one time anything that I ever wanted. I had plenty of money. I had 3 houses. I was married. I had 4 cars. I had a motorcycle, boat, all kinds of things. And that's when during my awakening period, I realized those things don't fulfill you. So for the last 2 years for me to feel like I was hitting a brick wall, and every time I would just bounce back and fall down and try to gather myself up and figure out what's going wrong. I didn't understand it, but I think I have an understanding now. And I wanted to share that with everyone because I know there's a lot of people out there that have been going through similar. But on the other hand, there's also people who haven't been going through this and have been holding a space of neutrality and witnessing, watching all of us, all the other people suffering in one way or the other and falling on their asses and learning all these lessons. And what's happening in a nutshell is that we're all meeting up now. Like literally, this will air right after the spring equinox. Literally, we're all meeting up again for a reunion, so to speak, on one of the original timelines. So to explain about timelines equals frequency. So I went somewhere on a different timeline, a parallel reality, a different frequency, and I didn't understand why, because a lot of my friends in this metaphysical genre seemed to be doing great, and I wasn't, and I didn't understand why. And I call it falling into a trap. And whether I fell into a trap or not, unconsciously is the question that I asked myself this morning, kind of like in that forgiveness of yourself state. But I feel like I may have volunteered to jump in to that area with a lot of other people. But it could also be my ego saying, it's okay, you didn't fall for it, you're not that dumb. The trap itself is a false light agenda, a false light ascension, a polarity light warrior agenda, to where you're literally trying to expose things, you're forcing information upon people, you're trying to save people, you're trying to save the earth. That in itself will bring the opposite polarity to you and then will magnify within you. And that's what I struggled with for many, many years after my awakening. And so where I'm at now is realizing that, and what this talk will turn into is how to keep out of the polarity game and be the compassionate witness and hold the space of balance. So that's a little overview about what's happened.
Well, that's really interesting, Michelle, and a lot of deep thinking brought you to that place. Can you give me, or people who might be listening to this show, an example of what that looks like, some of the activities of a false light warrior, or what they may be thinking in their mind as they follow this program?
It's a very fine line. I mean, we all have this, those of us who are real, that aren't backdrop people, we have this compassion within us, this empathy, and we really want to help people, awaken, and we want to support each other, and we want to not be teachers or leaders, but share information that may give them confirmation. We want to abolish the darkness. And that's kind of funny that I'm talking with you about that, because as we know, Dolores Cannon had never met a bad ET in any of her sessions. But I guarantee you, the place, she was not on that timeline. The timeline I went to is full of darkness. And in Earth School, how would you know what darkness was unless you immersed yourself in it? And I'm not saying that I did anything bad to immerse myself into darkness. I'm saying that there's a fine line for every plan that we have in a lifetime, and for like the ending of a grand cycle and the beginning of a new earth and becoming a real human. There's also an agenda against it in a polarity universe. So they can look into the future and see what terms we used, and they can bring propaganda out that will be the opposite of what we intended on sharing with everyone. And we can fall into the traps of being a savior, trying to help other people, when it's totally against their free will for us to impose anything upon them. And I suffered great retribution with my family, with my relationships, And I was so bullheaded that I just kept hitting it. I just kept going. I just kept pushing the agenda of the light. And it's not to say that I'm not the light. It is to say that everyone is having their own unique perspective and their own reality right now. And, you know, whatever they're here to do could be completely different than what I'm here to do. And let's say the powers that were in charge of the planet were very smart in creating traps that would lure you in to fight them, so that in a polarity situation, in a matrix situation, what you put out comes right back to you in a form of a demon or a ghost or whatever. So I was suffering with medical issues. I was suffering with things like not being able to communicate with my partner, very frustrating. So I would be generating all this frustration energy and a lot of anger energy that would just be siphoned from me. So I was confused. I was dejected. I was not understanding why in an ascension time, I didn't feel like I was ascending, because I was mired in this energy. I was trapped in this energy that I couldn't seem. Somebody like me who I thought, I mean, my consciousness was here. I was learning all kinds of information. I had some kind of connection with my higher self, because I was, you know, figuring out how to step through it. But I know a lot of people were able to really receive these big downloads from their higher self. People were having all these special abilities. They seem to be doing good. And some of that is actually a lot of people just saying that they were. Some of it was true. Those are the ones holding the space that didn't fall into polarity, didn't fall into a parallel timeline, a false ascension timeline. And all of this, you know, I go into a lot of this false light stuff, false ascension, whatever you want to call it. We had to give it some kind of words. I began to wake up in it and expose this stuff on my website, howtoexitthematrix.com. And I haven't posted there in a really long time, because what it looked like to me was, at one point I was like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Do I really know anything? And then I just had to stop. A lot of times when I did sessions with people and they were doing, you know, running in the same circles as I was, I said, just stop everything. Just stop. Just stop and observe, become centered and balanced, and only deal with what's in front of you. If that's the only thing that helped me get through the time I was in. And I'm going to estimate that time, I think 2012 is when I fell into another reality. And that reality was running parallel with your reality, with my boyfriend's reality. We were all having our own little realities, but there was a large group that were in that reality with me. And so I think that it really exacerbated and got worse up until about, you know, like 2 years ago, it really started to get where I stopped. I just had to stop everything. I stopped doing sessions with people, because who was I, you know, to tell? I didn't have any of these downloads and all these things that were happening. I was literally cut off from those things because I was creating in a distorted place. Okay. And I had to get out of it. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how to get out of it. I kind of did, because stopping really did work. Then I began a 2-year healing journey, and I had to focus just on myself. So I'm going to pause, because I could go on.
I love that about you. No, I've just missed you so much. And I know so many of us have missed you in large measure because of the way that your train of thought does kind of keep chugging along, because I know a lot of us feel the same way. So with all of these timeline concepts that you're talking about, do you feel now that you've come out of that timeline? And if you did, because I can almost feel our future viewers and listeners ask the same question. They wonder, was I in that timeline with you? How do I know if I was? And if you got out, how do I get out? And can we even be talking if that was a different timeline? I mean,
we could be talking. We
Okay.
could be talking, but the timing of this interview is absolutely incredible, because I feel like this March equinox is when the Calvary has finally arrived. Okay, that's really how I would sum up what I want to share. Who is the Calvary? Well, there are planetary councils, there are solar system councils, there are galactic councils, there are universal councils that are over what we call Earth, the Earth experience, the Earth school. So I'm going to say a matrix is the same as a dream, which is the same as a hologram, which is the same as a game, which is the same as a construct, which is the same as a school. These are all terms that all of my friends that have been using to describe what we're doing here, what this is. The Calvary is a solar system council that is taking over the overseeing of what's happening here, because the council that was here before had good intentions and they knew that what they were doing, but they just didn't get the job done as far as helping many beings get out of a lower frequency timeline, a copy of the original timeline that actually allows our frequency to raise and change our reality in what people are calling the new Earth, which is really the Earth it's the same Earth, but it's the Earth in a different frequency that changes your holographic projection that's around you. So the Calvary is either consists of our higher self, depending on who you are, or our higher self is working with the Calvary, the councils, over this solar system. And things got really bad here. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about what's going on in the outside world, because it's an illusion. It's playing out a destruction timeline, to where when Dolores talked about the two Earths splitting, the old Earth is like a dead shell, just like our body would be dead when we leave it. That's still happening. That timeline is still happening, okay? So that's the original timeline of splitting of two worlds. I forgot where I was going with it, but I'll just keep going.
That's all right. We were talking about people listening and wondering what timeline they're on, and how can they tell, and how did you get out of it?
Calvary. We were talking about the Calvary and who they are.
Yeah.
So this is what you call Plan B. Plan A would be an organic ascension, to where all of us go together in a frequency and we raise together with Earth, and those who didn't choose to do that would go back with that dead Earth, that old Earth, and then everybody else would go with this new Earth. But something happened called a timeline rift, and it occurred on I don't want to set off any censors, 9/11 of 2001. And that, since all of our past lifetimes and future lifetimes are parallel realities, so since time is just a way to experience nodal points for a story to unfold in the school, in the game, that coincides with the fallen Atlantis. So I became a fallen one. Why would I do that? Well, either to learn or to help. And knowing that I wanted to help, I fell into a false sense of help type thing. And I'm not saying I didn't help a lot of people, I did. But there may have been information that I was repeating rather than it coming from within me. There also was information that was coming from within me, but it wasn't as much as what I was repeating. And I was giving a platform for other people to share their information, and all that's cool, but it just wasn't quite right. Just wasn't exactly what I'm sharing with you today. which is what's happened to me, and that I have gathered the information to understand what happened to me and where we're going, so that not to try to convince anybody of anything, but to explain what happened so that we know where to go, what to do now. Okay, so Calvary has arrived. They are, from what I understand, helping those of us who fell into a parallel, very close, here's the original timeline and here's the other one. It looks very similar, but we're off doing weird things that aren't in alignment with being centered and grounded and connecting with the original earth and aligning with Pachamama, going to the new earth type thing. We know about it and we think we are, but we're being tricked to become further and further and further away. This Calvary was called in, kind of like volunteers, to take over the project and help literally move people from that false timeline that have done the work. You still are doing the work, but you can't seem to see it in your reality unfolding, and bringing them back to the original timeline where we can all move together. Okay. So I've had people tell me that they had dreams of me, and I am, in one particular case, I had a white lab coat and a clipboard, and I'm saying, you just made it just in time. You need to get ready. You need to call your sister and you tell your sister it's time. So I feel like that of all of the clues I've gotten, that I chose to do that. I chose to jump over there. But I could just be like one of the ones that actually just fell, and this council is coming in now to help. I don't want to say rescue, but really I couldn't do it myself. That's why I just threw my hands up and said, okay, I give up. I surrender. I surrender. Everything I do is hitting a brick wall. I don't know what else to do. So this spring equinox is one of the biggest energetic shifts that those of us who have been kind of off thinking that we were on are going to experience. And I usually experience things a few weeks ahead, kind of like a pre-wave. And I feel like I am connected now with that original timeline where many of my brothers and sisters have been waiting since 2012, 9 years now. Is that right? I remember when I went into the timeline, I died. I pretty much died in a way. It was December of 2012. It was that, a lot of people were talking about moving into the new earth then. And I was very confused and very dejected when I woke up December 22nd of 2012. And I'm like, I'm still in bed with the worst flu I've ever had in my life. And I looked outside. I'm like, I don't see a new earth, I don't see a new reality. What happened? Well, I got pulled into an alternate reality, a time loop. And I feel like we're coming out of it now. We're literally being pulled by our higher selves out of that time loop and joining everyone again, the grand reunion. So, and this is what BQH, I think, was created for, to help people that were in that time loop heal themselves. Of course, it's helping the other people who aren't in the time loop as well. But beyond quantum, how else could you pull somebody else out of a false timeline and falsely attacking themselves energetically and making themselves sick if they are so in this fun house, like when you go to the circus or whatever, the carnival, and they have these warped mirrors, everything's distorted, and everything that you try to create is distorted and working against you, and demons are everywhere attacking you, and you're constantly fighting. How can you help somebody? You can't do that with traditional methods, because those methods were created before this timeline incursion happened, okay, which was coinciding with the fall of Atlantis. The key was to get a lot of us trapped there and not be able to do what we're going to do, which is allow this split to occur, where those who caused the fall of Atlantis out of their egotistical, warring ways, their polarity ways, can choose that reality for themselves, but not drag the rest of us that were innocent down with it, okay? So this is just my version. It may sound completely insane. I don't care at this point. I have nothing to lose. Why are they here? Is because I would say a divine call to, at the end of a grand cycle, wrap up the game, wrap up the school. There have been many people who felt that they were graduating, Earth graduates, Earth school graduates. I had many, many, many dreams of being in college again or in high school again. And I've already graduated. I have a bachelor's degree. In my dream, I kind of had a knowing, I've already graduated. I've already done this. Why am I back in school? We were just about to come upon graduation time. And I had it was like if I was looking at my grades, there was like, some grades in the first part of the whole semester. And then there was a whole bunch of zeros in the middle missing. And then I got back into class. I don't know what they're talking about in class. I feel like I've been gone forever. I had a hard time finding the class. I lost my schedule. I didn't know what building the class was in. I just walked in going, I don't remember anything. So to me, now I see I was missing a whole lot because I was on this alternate timeline. I was missing my lessons. That was the plan. Let's get them to miss their lessons. So when real graduation time comes, they haven't done the real work. They think they've been doing the work. They haven't. So because some of us were pulled into it without our free will was broken. Because the universal law was broken, that's why this council is allowed to come in and help.
Michelle, can I ask, how did you become aware of this council? How is this information coming to you?
I would like to say that I've downloaded that I am some powerful being that downloaded this into a packet of information and unfolded it. But there are parts of this council that work with other councils, earth councils, and they put out information. I prefer not to say exactly. There's two sites. There's I will say one thing. I don't want to give people a name and then them run to that website and try to pull what I am saying, merging it with somebody else, because that's not fair to that other person. Because I have my own perspective, and everything that's happened to me is different than what happened to them. But I've been following Lisa Renee for a very long time. And she talks about the Solar Rishi Council. And in December, I think, she did a newsletter. And when things come to me synchronistically for me to watch, I also got it backed up on another website, completely, let's just call her a Syrian, that was putting out information on higher levels that most people don't even know. Our videos get 230 views or whatever. But I was guided to see that information somewhere, and that's how I've been working since of my awakening. It's people say everything's inside of you, yes, but if you cannot reach that information inside of you, you can project it outside of you, and then there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of stuff that's not even true, but the stuff that you feel is true, you can take it as your truth, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So that's how I found my explanation for what happened to me. So, and I don't want people to equate my work with Lisa Renee's work, because I don't even have a work. She's incredible. She's full of information. She's doing what she's here to do to help. We're smart too, by the way, the ones that got duped. We're smart too. So a lot of us got together and said, look, you guys are going to fall into this other timeline. You're going to help other people, and you're going to help them wake up and realize that there's a lot of false information out there. And we're going to put out some information to remind you. It's all about reminding you to remember so that when it's time to get pulled out of it, you will get pulled out. We're going to come get you. Don't worry. When you do get pulled out, you can pull other people with you energetically. Come on, let's go this way. Pack your bags. You're just in time, type thing. And then we're going to get ready for the next period of time that everything that we've been talking about really will happen. That's the important part, is that how long is this going to take? How long is this going to take? When is this going to happen? Well, we had to pull everybody out of the false timelines first and collapse them from that. The timelines are still there. They're still going to be collapsing things. And it has nothing to do with what's going on outside. Nothing to do with any of that. It's all about, we're not even projecting that and creating that. That's still another illusion that's happening on its own. This is about learning lessons and learning things and balancing your karma and stuff like that. So, but you can't equate what's happening out there with how well we're doing here. And that's a mistake, another trap that a lot of people did with the last election and the last leader of our country. So that has nothing to do with how well we are. I mean, who are we? That has nothing to do with us. There's no leaders like that on a new earth, on the earth that we know that we're going to either create or rejoin. Going back to a time before Atlantis fell, before it got taken over by dark priests, before crystals were used to cut holes in Earth's aura and into other timelines and allow other beings that shouldn't be here to come in. So let's see. What's happening is a course correction to where we're all going to the big reunion. I had dreams about that too, about being in a big conference room, huge, and then all these people are here and someone's about to get up and speak. We're kind of like going towards that now. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a piece of cake. As a matter of fact, it's like timeline travel. It's like time travel. So I'm getting a second chance. A lot of the mistakes that I made, I'm being put back in time to a time before I fell. And those, there will be parallel situations that come up where I could make the wrong choice and the wrong decisions again and fall again. But with the wisdom and knowledge I've gained from going to that school, that parallel reality, I will make better decisions and I will be more aware, and I've grown and I'm in a different frequency now because of it. And that's what, oddly enough, that's what we needed. Some of us needed to understand the matrix or the school that we were in, because the original school that was created, the original Earth school, is not the school that we're in now. We're still not out of some false reality, in my opinion, but we are getting back there. We're going there. We're getting there. We have to get there before we can go forward.
Isn't it having others participate in bolstering that frequency by waking up? Doesn't that propel us a little better to head towards that original timeline? That's what it seems like to me. As more and more people wake up, we'll be able to shed some of this, like the shell that you're talking about. A lot of other spiritual teachers out there talking about the bifurcation, and it may be this is also what you're talking about, this concept, but that even if that happens, that in the end we all go. I mean,
you don't even have to wake up to hold a higher frequency, though. Exactly. I mean, there are so many people just holding space and holding frequency. That's their job. That's what they volunteered to come do. So, but yes, the people that do wake up, unfortunately, the traps they're everywhere on false information and what they're supposed to be doing, and pay me thousands of dollars to activate your DNA or take your chakras out. There's a lot of a lot of traps. If I could tell anyone anything, that would be the most important thing. We've all heard this, but it's so true. We are each having our own individual journey based on our DNA of all of the experiences of all the lifetimes we've ever had. In order to return to an original template, an original frequency, a divine source frequency, we will learn everything we need to know about that from right within here. And I've been talking about it and have been hearing about this for years, and I knew it was true. Have I been able to do that? About the tip of the iceberg, but the rest is coming. It's like, I can't remember who said it, but I'm going to say it's like a come to Jesus moment. I don't believe in the false Jesus stuff that's been put out there in the religious and stuff like that. But what I mean by that is that we are literally I was literally on a cross. I was crossed. My wires were crossed. Everything, my DNA was even crossed. My polarity was crossed. I was in a polarity situation, coming off the cross, being resurrected, and there will be a time where your higher self will definitely, BQH is great for this, by the way. Your higher self will speak to you. If you can't hear it before, it will begin to happen as you continue to clear your blocks and your karma, which is an energetic block, an energetic imbalance. And the work, I'll talk about a little bit more of the work later on, but as you continue to do that, and as more people, like you said, wake up to that, and the more that do it, one of the traps is that, we are not here to save anyone else. The work that we do on ourselves, we may want to just share those specifics with everyone else, but it's not going to do them any good. Don't listen to anybody else. From this point forward, it's great to hear confirmation, and it's great to hear what other people are doing and compassionately witness and hold space. You're the only one that knows how to repair your DNA and how to refine your frequency to the original template, because the Anunnaki are the ones that changed the human DNA template, which kind of cut us off from our source. And that's a whole nother thing that I studied for years, and I had to, because I was in that frequency, and I had to totally, I even met several of them in person and became friends with them in order to dive into it, to understand it.
I think I remember that, Michelle.
Yeah, so you're the only one that knows, based on all your experiences and everything, how to fix your DNA within you. And every single person will be doing that. That's going to align with a new reality, okay? And don't have any fears that you're not going to be able to do that, because you're a divine source. Why wouldn't you? And the more that you awaken to all of the false information that's out there about how to do that, and you trust yourself, and you learn what it means to be centered and balanced, and you're sitting with yourself in that space, it will happen. Okay, so that's going to land you on your highest and best timeline / frequency / template, human body template. Another reason besides just being in school is you're here because Earth is a genetic library. You're here to receive you're here to get a template that's messed up and fix it, and be able to have a new Earth human template for a human. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. Let's see. So what I was saying is the work's not over just because I was put back into a timeline that was closest to the original where I was supposed to be. I have to, maybe some of the work that I did over the last several years since 2012 is not going to be there anymore. I may have to reface a few things where I repeat that work to clear that out. That's what happens when you time jump. It wasn't the ultimate way to do this, but it's the way that we can get back. Also, you have to be really on your toes. You don't want to stay sequestered, from the whole world, which is what I had to do for 2 years. But the attacks that maybe you had aren't going to be there anymore. There will be pestering attacks because that's just the nature of the game. How else would you learn? It's the nature of school. How else would you learn unless you had adversity in front of you? That just, walking every day, that's all I did in the other timeline too, walking every day and in what's in front of you. Don't worry about what's happening out there. Yes, it affects you, but you're smart enough to figure out, how can I walk in these two worlds for a while until this complete bifurcation happens, because it will happen. So just dealing with what's in front of you is the best that you can do. And sometimes if you're depleted of energy, if you're sick, if you're dejected, depressed, that's all you can do. So you're doing great if you can handle just what's in front of you. So let's see, the results of this will be more energetic than anything. They're not going to be like, our world is going to start changing for the better in front of our eyes and all these things in the external. Remember, that whole reality is still dissolving. That's what happens in a natural cycle, is those who don't want to move out, volunteer to play like the adversary type, well, they just get to be recycled back to source, and you need to let them be recycled. We're not here to save them. And that they tried to pull some of us with them. Okay, and that's why we all came back to volunteer to help, is to pull those groups of souls out that were going down with the ship. Okay, so eventually what will happen is you will need to become a human. You will need to finally be a human. Some people have been a human. They've been doing it. Great. Congratulations. Some people think that they were human, but they were in some kind of clone body or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But if you know that this body's a hologram anyway, which body was I in? Well, you're about to join, if you were where I was, you're about to join an original body that's still messed up, but that's when the work begins to change it. So it's going to be a lot easier to deal because you've had the experience now, but it's not going to be just a walk in the park. We still have to be on our toes. So the next main topic really is, I'm just looking at some notes here. Oh, we won't have to deal with everyone else's illusions at this point. We're just dealing with our own. I mean, my goodness. I mean, we may witness it, but we won't fall into it. And I won't, like when I had an Anunnaki friend, I became merged with her world and her illusions, and she continued to drag me down. I allowed it, I made that choice. I won't make that choice. I can support them and witness. Some of them are actually coming around as well and doing the work, and decided they don't want to go down with the ship. They want to meet their higher self, and they know who they are, and they want to ascend as well. Ascend equals how to exit the matrix. That's what I call it, right? So we've reached a juncture now. You can see it as either the higher self coming into you finally and seating, or Earth and the real ones, not the backdrop people, but the real ones have raised their frequency as a group to meet where they can actually, when the song Jesus Take the Wheel, well, take out Jesus and put higher self take the wheel, because it's actually kind of the same thing anyway. So we're allowing our higher parallel self to run the vehicle, be in the vehicle, be more in the vehicle, because of the frequency that we're meeting them at. It knows how to do everything. As you know, it's the subconscious that Dolores talked about. It knows everything that you need. and you don't need anything else from anyone else. That was the big trap. I'm going to pause and let you ask questions before I go on if you have any.
Yeah, I'm not interrupting you because I think when I do, I'm catching a little bit of an echo on my end. I've been thinking as you've been talking, Dolores really didn't ever meet a negative ET, and she really didn't ever have to deal with demons and those kinds of things and possession. And to her credit, I do believe that she saw a little bit of what was going on, and it was why with her particular practitioners, she didn't allow them. She really didn't. She shut down all conversation about it. And in BQH, I have a different opinion because I think stopping people from talking about anything and censoring about any topic, I don't want any part of that. But it really was the only thing that Dolores just didn't want anyone to talk to. But I think it came from a really good place and a higher understanding of, because then you're focusing on it, just like your Anunnaki friend. And if you get too wrapped up in that, you could get sticky fingers onto their life, their frequency, their world, and get dragged into their timeline. So I do understand and appreciate it. To this day, I have not once, after, look how many years, it's it's 13 years. 13 years of this work, I've never once had to deal with a negative attachment. Not one time. But I don't deny anyone else's reality because of the way that you have explained the timelines and getting sticky and jumping and how close they are. I don't deny that there are other timelines. I don't seem to be on that one particular one, but they can exist right here. And it's fascinating the way you talk about it. There's something I would like for you to address, if you wouldn't mind. You were speaking a little bit about, the false light and the false teachings. The word control comes to me a lot. I think about it a lot because of those out there who wish to control me, my family, or others who I don't want any part of that. But in the same sense, some of these other people who either are partially awake or believe themselves to be awake, there's a little sense of them wanting to control things too. And I think that's a boomerang and backfires. Can you talk a little bit about this whole issue of control and where we are right now on timelines and planets before you go on? Because I'm very interested in your take on that.
Well, control comes from two different places. One is the breed of, the race of reptilians and draconians that actually own the Earth school. It was taken over. It was infiltrated, and they are controlling. They eat meat. I'll just put it that way. They eat energy. They are in polarity. They are the dark. They come from the same source, and they chose to be away from connection of energy of source. They chose to be the opposite of the light in order to provide the school. So they're part of the school, and the ones that are supposedly awakened, that are exercising control, are literally just in fear. They're in fear of not being in control, not being able to control their own reality and what happens to them. And not only that, but they're infiltrated perhaps by another group. There's so many different agendas going on right now with extraterrestrial groups. Some want to get the genetics and DNA. They've created these new humans, and they would like to be able to take that human template and go to other planets and start new civilizations when they leave here. They don't want to go to the new Earth. They don't want to go. Some of them can't get above a higher fourth dimensional frequency, so they need to go continue their experience somewhere else, and they're here to get the genetics, and that's a lot of the gray abductions and stuff like that. Then there's incarnated Anunnaki, that they've lived a life of control. They're the ones that actually hijacked the situation by changing our DNA, and they think they own us. So there's a lot of different ways that control is apparent. from what I understand, this Earth School, this Ascension School, and this may or may not be true, but it kind of makes sense that there's one school in each galaxy for Ascension, for your final incarnation and learning your final lessons, and then moving into a fifth dimensional frequency from third and fourth, right? So it happened to, Earth happened to volunteer to be in a dark polarity arm of the galaxy, in the Orion arm. So a lot of this solar system has been controlled by the Orion Queen, so to speak, the Orions, the controllers, they're controllers. They're reptilian in nature, and witnessing it without polarity and knowing it's just part of a play, part of the way that the story goes, is the best thing to do here. And so some people just think, I mean, in a polarity situation, some people had to see everything, had to see all the dark. On the other hand, to keep everything in balance, some people had to not see any of it, because we couldn't all fall in. I mean, some people had to hold the end of the rope on the tug of war and just sit there with their feet just totally dug into the ground and say, okay, I'm getting really tired here, guys, hurry up, you know? So that's why I think you're seeing such, you know, night and day. You know, there's those who want to control and those who want to get out of the control. So hope that answered. That's my perspective.
That's great.
So you want to talk a little bit about the work? How are we doing on time?
We're good. We're about an hour in, but we're going to do 2 parts. So you keep going, girl.
Okay. Well, so surrendering was one thing I talked about that I did. You're still doing the work when you're in this parallel reality, but surrendering to the higher plan and trusting yourself and trusting that your higher self knows everything that's happening to you. Your higher self won't rescue you in that respect of, if it's something that was planned for your incarnation, if it's something that wasn't really planned that came up in your incarnation, it will assess whether it takes you completely off your path or whether it is beneficial for you to learn from, for it to learn from, for it to grow and expand from. But it won't like rescue you if you fall into a parallel timeline, especially if you knew you were going to do that, but you forgot after you were born. It will not let you die until the time comes that it planned that you will die, if you're going to die out of your body, because you need to, especially in this last lifetime, you need to get all the things done that you planned on doing, even if it means you have to go into a parallel loop to extend your school. So balancing your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies is very important in what it means to be centered. So your auric field is a layer of all of these different bodies that you have. That is something that, you know, will allow you that connection to your higher self. In the old way of doing it, it would be, you know, the 7 chakras. I had to shut my chakras down at one time because that's how I was being attacked in that other reality. But now I'm going back to a time where that actually never happened energetically. I'm going to still have the same house. I'm still going to have the same boyfriend. I'm still going to have the same reality that you guys were holding parallel. But I energetically have a second chance in being able to balance my chakras and keeping them closed when they need to be closed. It's like an automatic thing that you kind of morph whatever situation you're in. If you go to Walmart, you better have all your chakras kind of like closed down, you know. But if you're in a situation like, you know, you're expansive and you're connecting with other people and you're protected in your frequency, you're in a higher frequency, then your chakras are going to be expansive now and spinning fast enough to throw out all of those karmic debts that you had from all those other lifetimes. Supporting others on the path, but not telling them what they need to do is important, because when you tell someone else what to do, you're immediately incurring karma that will need to be balanced, and just creating more energetic issues for yourself. Because remember, like I said, every single person is doing this based on their whole conglomerate of lifetimes, whether they were an Arcturian or Pleiadian, or where maybe they were in another universe before they ever came here, and they still carry that with them. Everybody's got their own job here to do, so everybody has their own perspective. So it's a very fine line. You shouldn't be telling other people. You can guide them to self-empower themselves. That was a big lesson I had to learn, and I did suffer for that karma, and I've already taken care of that in the other timeline. I learned even sharing someone else's information is implied that I'm supporting it, and I kept getting so frustrated with myself. Something didn't feel right. I was just giving a platform on a radio show to so many people, and just because I was giving them a platform almost kind of makes me responsible for that information, and it was a trap in a way. But I kind of stopped doing the radio show because of that, because I had to put so much effort into researching them before I had them on, to make sure that I wasn't putting out something that wasn't true. And I even got caught in the middle of shows thinking to myself, oh boy, I shouldn't have had them on. How do I close this show up really quickly, So there's so many fine lines you don't want to step over. Dealing with what's in front of you, it's all you can do. It's all you can do. And you have to trust that what's being projected from within you are the things that need to be addressed. And that's how you move forward, one foot in front of the other. And definitely honor other people's paths. If you see someone struggling, we really aren't, we're here to save people, but we're not. We should only give advice when it's asked of us. We should only give help when it's asked of us. And we're really not here to save anyone else, because that would be like, think about how totally disrespectful that is to someone else's higher self. If what is true, what I just said is true, that every higher self knows exactly what's happening, and they want their aspect of themselves in here to kind of trip up and fall so that they can learn from it. And you see somebody tripping up and falling, and that's what real judgment is about. Real judgment is not judging someone else's tripping and falling, maybe helping them up and supporting them in a way with love, and maybe helping them if they ask to see, how did I trip up and fall? If they ask. Otherwise, you're just asking for it.